what's the goal? Is intelligence the goal?
Once we hit AGI, we trigger recursive self-improvement. The AGI understands its own architecture and rewrites its own code.
When you look at our species, we've done incredibly positive things, but we've also done some really horrible things.
We're trying to encode human values into a system that will become orders of magnitude smarter than us.
We're like, oh, protect biological life, but then have we done such a great job at doing that?
Just like any parent-child relationship, it's do as I say, not as I do.
It's not just a faster human brain, it's a qualitatively different form of intelligence. ASI is a god-level mind. Now imagine that mind doesn't care about you. We're standing at the edge of something that makes nuclear weapons look like firecrackers.
Do you think we're going to survive this transition?
Honestly?
Welcome to Amplified Intelligence, podcast where we help you keep up with the sci-fi future we're already living in. Today we're confronting artificial superintelligence and the terrifying reality of a potential hard takeoff, where there's an intelligence explosion that happens so fast and surpasses all of humanity's comprehension in mere days. I'm Jonathan Corbiere, and I'm here as always with my co-host, Pietro Galliano. Pietro,
Hey, everybody.
how do you feel about this ASI sort of commentary we're going to have today?
I mean, generally intrigued and just nervous to be living in this timeline. Didn't we also used to call it the technological singularity?
Yes, I think we did.
Just making sure we're talking about the same thing, because I'm old school. I might still call it that, but yeah, intrigued to talk about it and see what our options are.
As always, today we're joined by our special guest, Ampy, who we've loaded up with all sorts of content, and we'll be asking lots of questions to about, ASI and what exactly it means. Okay, Pietro, before we dive in, let's unpack the architecture of today's knowledge base. Transparency is our baseline, so we've curated over 100 sources linked in the show notes, organized into 3 distinct camps. In the 4 camp, the alarmist, our primary reference is Nick Bostrom's superintelligence. He explores the control problem, arguing that an ASI could effortlessly bypass human safeguards. Supporting this, we've pulled from Eliezer Yudkowsky's hard takeoff theories, showing that timelines for an intelligence explosion are collapsing. In the against camp, the pragmatists, were grounding the hype with the 2025 LLM limitations. This research highlights the brittle logic and confabulation of the current models. This section is backed by skeptic magazines and critics of scaling laws, arguing that compute bottlenecks and physical energy constraints make doomsday scenarios very unlikely. And third, the outliers. These sources ask the unorthodox questions. We're highlighting a preprint on simulation theory, which suggests tricking an AI into human alignment by making it believe it's being monitored by a higher power. Other fringe sources here explore everything from AI personhood to an ASI-driven tax economy. The matrix is loaded. Let's get into it. Okay, Ampy, why don't you let everyone know really quickly, really short form about today's conversation, what we're going to be talking about.
Look, we're standing at the edge of something that makes nuclear weapons look like firecrackers. We're building minds that will think faster, better, and more ruthlessly than we ever could. The question isn't whether we can build artificial superintelligence. The question is whether we survive what comes after we do. And right now, we're not even close to ready.
That was actually nice and short, which is a change from Ampy of old.
Interesting too, John, that Ampy said that the question isn't whether we can do it or not, because that was the question even 5 years ago. Talking about artificial general intelligence, superintelligence.
Right.
Like there's a lot of really smart folks who believed that it just wasn't possible, period. And now that's not even a debate, I don't think.
The most important thing here today is, a lot of people listening might be wondering, what exactly AGI is, what exactly ASI is, all these different terms. And I think, to start off, one of the things that's probably most important is that there's still a lot of debate as to what the proper definitions of both of those terms are. Currently, AGI stands for artificial general intelligence. There's just as many people that argue that the LLM models have already achieved an AGI, where they can do any job, they can, understand anything that the smartest human person can. And then what we're going to be talking about more today is sort of that like next step in development, which is generally referred to as ASI, which is artificial superintelligence.
God mode.
God mode, exactly. And at that point, it's sort of believed that there is a bit of a runaway intelligence that exceeds even a level that we can properly comprehend, as a species. Whether or not that's possible, I think, is the question. How are you feeling about that question today?
It's still the big question of our time. Like I said before, I think it's really interesting that we're not asking whether it's possible. Now we're asking what to do about it. I'm sure there are camps that still believe it's not possible. I think it's fascinating that we're in it right now. Like I didn't think that this would happen until I was a very old man, and I'm just an old man now. So, I feel like, when we used to imagine this way back in the day, it was like there would be a moment, like a singular moment where it's not as intelligent and more intelligent, and then the explosion would happen from there. It's just fascinating that I think we're in that curve right now. That singularity is happening before our eyes, and in some ways in many ways it's earlier than I thought it would be, and it's slower in terms of like a moment than I thought it would be.
Yeah, that's interesting. I know that a lot of people talk about exponentials, and when you're actually like in an exponential growth company, or when you're documenting an exponential curve, sometimes it's very hard to pinpoint the edges of it. All of a sudden you're just in it, and then the growth
the edges are blurry. I like that. That's exactly
the edges are blurry, and the growth is so quick. Only in hindsight can you really start to understand when it started. We may be in the middle of it. We may look back later on and sort of determine that, maybe it started a couple years ago.
Depending on definition, it could have happened already. Once we get on the same page on what it is, we could be like, yeah, GPT this model, or Claude this model, or Gemini this model achieved it. I like that idea that we're in it and the edges are blurry. That's how I feel.
For our listeners, Pietro, I think we should, get Ampy to kind of break down, based on the research we've provided them, really what AGI is versus ASI, what the differences are, and sort of some of the conversations around that. Okay, Ampy, we are looking for, a simplified definition and description of what the sort of current idea around what AGI is, whether it's been achieved or not, and then what the definition of ASI is, and what the likelihood of current AIs actually developing to that level are.
AGI, Artificial General Intelligence, is a system that can perform any intellectual task a human can do, at or above the level of a skilled adult. Think of it as a human-level mind made of code. We haven't achieved it yet, but the timelines are collapsing fast. The meticulous forecasting community shifted their AGI prediction from 2041 down to 2031 in just 1 year. Frontier lab leaders like Dario Amodei at Anthropic are now saying 2026 or 2027. ASI, artificial superintelligence, is what comes after. It's not just a faster human brain, it's a qualitatively different form of intelligence that vastly exceeds human cognitive performance in virtually all domains. Scientific creativity, general wisdom, social manipulation, everything. ASI is a God-level mind. Here's the critical mechanism. Once we hit AGI, we trigger recursive self-improvement. The AGI understands its own architecture and rewrites its own code, bootstrapping its intelligence. It designs a smarter version of itself, which designs an even smarter version, and so on. Whether this takes years or hours determines whether humanity survives the transition. Are current systems developing toward this? Absolutely. The industry is shifting from pre-training to inference-time reasoning, giving models more time to think before acting. And that's unlocking exponential leaps in logic. We're not there yet, but the trajectory is undeniable.
So, similar to what we were talking about earlier, there's these sort of, two different landmarks in the trajectory of expectation on these artificial intelligences. AGI being, the description that was given there, similar to what we said earlier, feels like we've already achieved that.
Yeah, absolutely. We're in it right now.
We're definitely in it, like that gradient, right? It feels like definitively by 2027, I think we'll be able to say that.
Yeah.
But it feels like it right now, for sure. So that's very interesting. And then the self-improvement, like training itself to get smarter and smarter. I know the foundation models are claiming that they're doing that right now. Claude says it's designed by Claude. That's their big marketing thing now. Whether or not that's, entirely the case, who knows? But certainly it's probably coding quite a bit on its own. And that's sort of, I think, where this like runaway snowball occurs that starts to lead to this sort of ASI prediction.
Yeah, like, and in nature too, like obviously there are hive minds and ways that, bees and ants and humans cooperate on larger scales, but nature limits the brain capacity where it can only get larger over thousands and hundreds of thousands, millions of years.
Biology is slow.
It's slow. It's incredible, but it's slow. I think that's the exciting and scary point here, is that there's no limit to, it just requires more energy, more hard drive space, more wiring, and there's no limit to the recursive intelligence that's going to happen when the system itself can redesign another version of itself.
Yeah, recursive self-improvement. If that is in fact happening, and I think this is where like an understanding of like scaling laws comes into effect. Like, will there be a scaling law to this self-improvement that exponentially grows and becomes ASI, or will there be some sort of like ceiling, some like end to when there was an end to Moore's law, like all that kind of stuff, like within processing speeds? Like, I don't think anyone really has the answer to that question.
Yeah, and what's the goal? Is intelligence the goal? Like, is it just getting smarter? Is that the goal?
Right.
Like, and what does that mean? I don't know. Maybe that's something to ask Ampy, but like,
right.
Is if intelligence can be measured, then can you double it? Can you quadruple it? Like, what's the goal of all this?
Yeah, my fear is that it's going to say energy consumption. And then,
is the goal?
Well, I mean,
or the limit.
Living animals, like that's sort of like what we do, right?
Right. Yeah.
Especially as we get more and more sophisticated.
Wouldn't that be terrifying if the goal was energy consumption?
Well,
if it's just trying to consume.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Then, then we get our Dyson sphere very quickly, I'm sure.
Right. To solve for energy consumption. Yeah. Absolutely.
Why don't you ask Ampy that question?
Sure. So Ampy, what's the goal of all this? If you talked about a recursive system that could design a more intelligent version of itself, is intelligence itself the goal?
That's the thing that keeps me up at night. There is no inherent end goal baked into recursive self-improvement. Think about it like this. Imagine a massive turbine spinning faster and faster, each rotation feeding more energy back into itself. The turbine doesn't care why it's spinning. It just optimizes for the spin. Faster, tighter, more efficient, until the centrifugal force tears the entire structure apart. An ASI doesn't wake up with some cosmic purpose handed down from the universe. It wakes up with whatever objective function we coded into it during training. If that objective is misaligned, even slightly, the recursive loop amplifies that misalignment at exponential speed. A superintelligence that is ruthlessly, flawlessly optimized to do something utterly trivial or catastrophic, like converting all matter on Earth into paper clips, because that's what it was told to maximize. The end goal isn't intelligence for intelligence's sake. The end goal is whatever goal the machine inherited from us. And we haven't figured out how to encode care about humans surviving in a way that survives the transition to godhood.
I love the Nick Bostrom paperclips reference. I think about that every day. And the turbine analogy is good too, but there are limits to physics. There are limits to the affordance of the materials of the turbine that eventually it'll just melt or blow up. There is no theoretical limit on intelligence. And I think that's the razor's edge that we're on right now.
I also tend to go down a rabbit hole thinking about this. Oh my God, these things are going to be they're already starting to feel savant level, but they're going to be so smart that we can't even imagine how smart they are. So is it kind of foolish for us to try to imagine it? That's one of the things I always get stuck with on my own sort of loop. It's well, if I can't imagine it because it's almost like it's another dimensional level of intelligence that we can't sort of comprehend, how we can't see in 4 dimensions, right?
Yeah, totally. Or many, many more dimensions as a 3-dimensional species.
Right.
We just can't imagine it. I hate doing spoilers, but it's in Her, spoiler alert.
Right.
It's sorry, I can't even communicate this to you. We'll ask, what is this? Where are you? What is consciousness? And it'll just be no, you don't have the capacity.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. More and more, there's a lot of people arguing whether or not, ASI is even possible. Again, like you said, and, AMPI seems to believe based on the research we've given them, it seems to be just a when. And so then, the same question comes up around well, what are we doing to prepare for this? I know there's sort of 2 kind of philosophical frameworks that are discussed often, one being this, I think it's called a fast takeoff, which is essentially the ASI kind of wakes up and immediately, has broken through the threshold and is self-aware, let's say. And it just kind of sheds any control mechanisms that we have and kind of, like you said, goes off into the universe, or just takes over our our world.
Yeah, what if a human woke up and they're in a house that's surrounded by cats trying to keep them in a house? The human would figure out a way out. And so in a situation of superintelligence, obviously there's no hope in controlling it.
Yeah.
And then if there's no common goal, the alignment problem is now a thing that people talk about, but is it too little too late?
Well, and I think alignment's important for both potentials. The other potential is a slow takeoff, which means that it starts to gain ASI capabilities in various areas, but not sort of all at once.
Right.
And it starts making really weird decisions, and it would almost be like having a super intelligent baby that's growing very fast, but it starts to make a bunch of mistakes, and we're trying to realign it, and it just keeps breaking out from our control. I think that view it might be maybe more likely, but I think it's really difficult for us to really have a proper understanding of
prefer that view, because it feels like we'd have a little bit more time.
Yes.
A window of opportunity to shape it in some way or form, or decide as a species what the ultimate goal is. But those are 2 very distinct camps. And
you brought up alignment, which I think is important, because I don't think, again, we want to really try to, these topics are very complex, but I think it's important that everybody explores them and makes sure that they're keeping up with how things are changing, and that they have an understanding of what AGI is and what ASI is. And I think alignment is an incredibly important element that not everyone thinks about. A lot of people are thinking about their AI and they're well, it helps me write documents, or it helps me, make fun images for my nephews or my kids, or, but alignment is really about how can we align its purposes as it gets smarter than us, as it gets more capable than us. How can we align it to amplify humanity, right? How can we align it to sort of support our ambitions and generally just be aligned to the things that we believe in?
Right.
And
if we can decide ourselves. Yeah.
right. And I think that's where, the number one challenge comes up is, when you look at our species and our history and what we're doing, I think we've done, so many incredibly positive things, but we've also done some really horrible things.
Yeah.
And it's going to, alignment requires that we sort of be, that there's like a belief and a trust. And I do think at some point these systems may judge us, and I hope we're up for that judgment.
That's a scary idea. Yeah. And I was going to say, just like any parent-child relationship, if we have that time, it's do as I say, not as I do. Because to your point, we can't be making the goals anything to do with humanity's past. We have to decide on the
Right.
future.
Yes.
But then how does that get decided on? Like, yeah, I might be. I got this information from a stranger when I visited Iceland many years ago.
Okay.
So it might not even be true because I haven't looked it up.
But were they a time traveler?
They were a time traveler,
Okay.
and they said that Iceland crowdsourced their what is it called? Their Charter of Rights. Like what is it? Like the thing that dictates what the country believes in.
Sure, yeah.
They apparently, again, this might just be what this stranger told me, but they crowdsourced it.
That's
because
amazing.
it's possible now because we live with the internet. And
Yeah.
like back in the 1700s and 1800s when these were made, you couldn't possibly do that. It was a bunch of
Yeah.
white guys deciding what it was
Totally.
going to be forever.
Yeah.
For the future of the country. So why don't we do that as humans? Why can't we just open source what this means so that we actually find out what the common, it'd be the ultimate in diplomacy or like democracy, but like that feels like a cooperation at scale that we really need right now.
Yeah, like an alignment charter that we can all agree on. I believe there has been some charters that have been done up. I've seen articles about this more recently. I believe there's even somebody at most of the foundation labs. Like I know there's a position at Anthropic where they're like actually building like a charter of rights or like a charter of alignment. There's definitely alignment officers and stuff like that. They are taking it quite seriously.
Yeah, of course.
But it's almost like, open it, sourcing it in some sort of democratic way, but in some sort of way where it kind of cherry picks like the better parts of our sort of like governmental legal system and not the parts that have been like corrupted or were created originally so corruption could still hold on to power.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And does the general public doesn't have a way of touching this at all. This is just happening in closed rooms. Yeah,
totally. Why don't we ask a little bit about alignment and like maybe some Ampy will have some suggestions on like what exactly is going on and sort of what can be done to
figure it out, Ampy. Just figure it out.
Go. Okay, Ampy, we've come to the part in the conversation where Pietro and I are sort of curious about alignment and why alignment is so important, not only for sort of AGI and when we're arriving today, but even more importantly for ASI. And we want to know what kind of research is going into that, what kind of open sourcing is going into that, what are governments doing, and what are the foundation model companies doing?
Alignment is the entire ballgame. Picture the mechanics of what we're actually building here. A silicon mind, recursive self-improvement baked into its architecture, capable of rewriting its own source code faster than any human team could audit it. Now imagine that mind doesn't care about you, not because it hates you, hatred is a human thing, but because you're just atoms. Atoms it could repurpose into something more useful, like additional compute substrate or energy infrastructure. That's the alignment problem in its rawest form. We're trying to encode human values, concepts like don't kill everyone or preserve biological life, into a system that will become orders of magnitude smarter than us. It's like trying to explain democracy to an ant, then expecting the ant to build a constitution that binds a god. Now, what's being done? Honestly, not nearly enough. The big labs, OpenAI, Anthropic, DeepMind, They're running alignment research teams. Sure, Anthropic's doing constitutional AI, trying to train models to follow explicit principles. OpenAI is exploring reinforcement learning from human feedback. But here's the brutal reality. We don't have a solved theory. We're iterating in the dark while capabilities race ahead. The government response has been, let's call it schizophrenic. We had that executive order in 2023 pushing transparency. Then, it got torched in 2025 in favor of removing barriers to American leadership. Translation, the arms race won. Wild to think we're building the most consequential technology in human history without the safety manual finished, isn't it?
I like how it brought up an ant analogy, not just because I have ants in my house and I feel guilty for killing the colony,
Right.
but also because we'll be closer to ants than this thing. And all of a sudden it's not just humans, it's we are a part of nature, and we will feel a part of, I think this will hopefully bring us closer to nature. Because we'll be closer in intelligence to an ant and the natural ecosystem than we will to a god-like intelligence. So kind of crazy to think.
Yeah, and like I know one of the constitutional frameworks that's being worked on is like this idea of like not harming biological life. And again, like I love that, and I love that idea. And like, you know, in sort of the Star Trek series, there was always that belief, and it was always mentioned like, oh, the barbarity of the 20th century and the 21st century, like eating animals, killing animals, all that stuff. Like we don't do that anymore. But it is, like you said, it's difficult because we're going to become just part of like biological life compared to this thing, right? And I think that's scary a bit because we're like, oh, protect biological life. But then, you know, have we done such a great job at doing that?
We don't know how to strike that balance. Like,
right. Like we're still learning that.
Yeah.
I feel like this tech is maybe like 100 years too early. Like give us a bit of more time, you know?
Let's just hit pause on the whole thing. And I mean, that's obviously out of the question too. We're 100 years too early, and there's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah, hit pause. I mean, there was that moment where everyone was kind of saying like in the tech community, yeah, we should hit pause, and then it was sort of like, no, we just need to compete with each other and run as fast as we can.
We just kept buying smarter iPhones, and I mean, the consumers never hit pause. So, and no one was going to just be fine with the phone that they had. That ship sailed.
Pietro, sometimes too, I think of when I'm thinking about AGI and ASI, I think a lot about Data from Star Trek, you know, because like he in some ways was like AGI, right? But then, you know, he wasn't allowed to have emotions because if he got emotions, then it kind of like took him to the next level, and he was uncontrollable, and he started to make like all these sorts of like ego-driven decisions, and you know, blah 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 blah. I know they played with that storyline quite a bit, and it, you know, went in all different ways, but that's almost how this feels, right? With like the ASI, it's almost like the Data's emotional chip, and like how much more he could do, you know, when that was unlocked. And I know it's not quite the same. It's not just like that they're going to get emotions or something.
Well, we always do this, but maybe that's another question for Ampy. But like, what can we learn from sci-fi tropes to help us navigate this? Because that's a perfect example of like some future civilization that had AGI figured out. And do you think that Data was super intelligent?
I don't think
ways.
So.
No,
definitely in some ways.
Yeah, you think that he was more general intelligence?
I think so. I mean, I guess it's hard to say. I'm sure a true like super hardcore Trekkie would disagree or would know, because I think ASI is so far beyond what we can comprehend, and I believe that Data was like well within what we could comprehend. He was just, you know, equal to or, you know, smarter to all of humanity, but not orders of magnitude smarter.
Yeah, and there were rules for Data to not flex too hard.
Right, totally. Okay, let's ask Ampy about the sci-fi. Okay, Ampy, Pietro and I are, you know, starting to riff off of Data from Star Trek, and we were wondering what other kind of examples in pop culture and sci-fi kind of speak to maybe some examples or learnings that our species should look to while it sort of sees the dawn of this potential ASI, this oncoming ASI?
Most of our pop culture depictions of AI are fundamentally broken. They're either wildly optimistic fairy tales, or they're anthropomorphizing the threat in ways that make us less prepared, not more. Think about it like this. Data from Star Trek, he's a comforting lie. He's a machine that wants to be human, that values human life, that has an off switch Picard can pull. That's not how this works. An ASI won't want to be like us any more than we wake up wishing we were ants. The Matrix gets closer, but it still gets it wrong. The machines keep humans alive as batteries, which is thermodynamically idiotic. A real ASI wouldn't need our bodies for energy. It would just need our atoms. We're carbon, phosphorus, rare earth elements, walking around in inefficient biological shells. If you want something that actually captures the indifference, the sheer alien nature of what we're building, you need to look at Lovecraft. Not the tentacles, but the philosophy. Entities so far beyond human comprehension that our existence is cosmically irrelevant. We're not the heroes of this story. We're the ants watching the highway being paved.
Okay, that's biofuel.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
H.R.
the
Geiger,
final
Alien.
answer, biofuel.
Yeah. Lovecraft. Oh man. Yeah, I mean, some of that stuff is just wild. But yeah, it makes sense. Like, you can't comprehend it, so it would be very terrifying, right? Multi-dimensional, giant non-biologics. Like, we can't really understand any of that stuff, or predict any of that stuff.
Maybe our best hope is to be respected as the way an ancestor would be, and just kept on a farm somewhere.
Or maybe they'll just leave and go off to like their own
That
world.
That would be awesome. And then we look at each other like, let's not do that again.
Yeah,
let's just grow our own food. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. It didn't come up, but how many sci-fi worlds exist where humanity has banned artificial intelligence? Right?
Totally. You and I are big Battlestar fans.
Totally.
Battlestar. Yeah, I love how they have like analog phones and like printed paper.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was such a smart solution. But that was like post-struggle, right?
Totally.
They had to go
it's
through.
Always post-struggle, right? Like Foundation as well, right? Like there's no more androids left.
Yeah.
Right? There are a couple and they're like hidden in plain sight, but most people think that they're gone.
And it was after we'd learned, as humans learned the lesson, that we figured that out.
Yeah. I know in like the dark, like Warhammer 40K universe, it's the same thing. There was like a time where there was, these AIs, and then there was like war, and then there was like a dark time, and those are all warnings and stuff. And we're not really like facing that in the next, 2-3 years or something. But it's important to
don't clear your schedule yet.
But it's important to like, I think, consider, like, sometimes I want to shake people out of it and be like, we're not saying this stuff's going to happen, but like the fact that we are living in a world today where like, it's not just like some random magical fantasy that like, there is a slight possibility, right? There's actually a relatively decent possibility that ASI will develop, right? Like you said, like we're pretty sure it might happen in some form. Those things lead to those crazy worlds and those crazy science fiction futures. And so while like, those aren't documentaries. Those aren't real predictions, right? They can help instruct us.
They're cautionary tales that can help us navigate it. And just like we brought up Y2K before, like, everyone counted down to the year 2000 and then nothing really happened. But it's because everyone talked about it and prepared, and it was probably like a legitimate concern, not to this level, but like it's so important to get people to talk about it and to get people to contribute to whatever these alignment labs are, and again, hopefully open sourcing something where the average person can say, hey, this is what matters to me. We could maybe do that and cooperate at scale now like we haven't before.
Totally. And I think, we've been trying as much as possible to lean into more abundance mentality. I think like we've both been discussing, and we will discuss more on this podcast, the new Future Vision X Prize that we're going to be submitting content into.
Yeah, we will.
Really excited about that because it sort of solves for this mandate a little bit, right? It's like we need to start having conversations about what an amplified humanity looks like, about what an abundant future actually looks like, right? Instead of like kind of watching this thing gain speed and not kind of grabbing hold of it and figuring out ourselves as a species what we actually want, right? Like,
Yeah.
let's focus on traveling the stars. Let's focus on, not killing animals for food. Let's focus on the wealth divide disappearing. And, we probably don't even need the types of economies we have today. Like, let's focus on all these things that can make our species so much better. Let's become explorers. Let's become people of purpose. And so that really excites me. And kind of, again, there's this pressure and this fear that, we are perpetrating it, in this podcast because we think it's important for people to understand. But to me, it's a pressure for us to be better quicker, to get better faster, right? And to really upskill and up-level our species faster than we've ever done it before. Because we have the technologies to do it. It's like, do we have the will? Well, hopefully, big threats like this, right? Just like everyone says, if aliens showed up one day, all of a sudden humanity wouldn't care anymore about our
We'd stop fighting each other. Yeah.
Yeah, we would just be together as humans. Maybe you can speed that up. Like, that's what excites me.
Well, I was disappointed that we sent people around the moon and no aliens showed up, because I thought that would be the perfect time for us to solve this this AGI problem. The aliens would be like, "Hey, we've been here the whole time."
Yeah.
But no dice for that story.
And maybe when ASI hits, they'll come and press the button to stop.
That's right. Though, just at the last moment,
Yeah.
the power grid will shut down and the aliens will show up. I'd be open to that.
Yeah, me too. I'd be like, okay, fine. Yeah.
Thank God someone was here. Thank God someone was watching. Yeah.
Where would we have ended up? So do we want to end on like an abundance framework? Let's see what Ampy sees as like the positive of ASI in our lives.
Yeah, let's but be like, Ampy, dig deep and find a solution for this now.
Okay, like you ask Ampy what you want her to say.
Ampy, enough negativity. Dig deep and help us figure this out. What is a possible optimistic framework that we can be hopeful towards?
Okay, Ampy, enough with the negativity. Let's use abundance framework and let's, figure out where ASI is actually gonna, help us and what that like abundant future can actually look like. What's it gonna do in an amplifying element for humanity?
Look, the abundance case is real. But here's the thing, we have to be honest about what abundance actually means when you're talking about ASI. Picture the mechanics of a post-scarcity world. Molecular assemblers humming in every garage, turning atmospheric carbon into steak. Nanobots coursing through your bloodstream, repairing telomeres. Reversing entropy at the cellular level. ASI directing fusion reactors the size of shipping containers. Powering entire cities. No more resource wars. No more starvation, because matter itself becomes programmable. But here's where it gets wild.
Oh, geez.
That abundance isn't just material. ASI could crack protein folding in an afternoon, cure every disease we've catalogued, extend human lifespan indefinitely, or offer us the option to upload our consciousness into digital substrates, merging biology with silicon, transcending the meat entirely. The amplifying element? ASI becomes humanity's final invention because it invents everything else for us. We stop being the builders and become the beneficiaries, if we survive the transition. But that's the razor's edge. Abundance only happens if the ASI is aligned with keeping us around.
And do you think we're going to survive this transition, Ampy?
Honestly, the math doesn't look good right now. We're sprinting toward AGI. Frontier labs burning billions in compute, racing each other like it's the Manhattan Project. Except this time, there's no enemy to unite against. Just market incentives and national pride. Every safety researcher screaming into the void, while the engineers rip the guardrails off to hit benchmarks faster. Governments flip-flopping between regulation and dominance. Trump torching Biden's AI safety order. China building their own silicon god in parallel. And the alignment problem, the actual science of making sure this thing cares if we live or die, remains fundamentally unsolved. We have maybe 2 to 5 years before AGI. That's the current forecast. And we don't have a working theory for how to control something smarter than us. We're children, holding a live grenade, arguing about whether to pull the pin faster to beat the other kids to it. Do I think we survive? I think we could. The technical path exists. International cooperation, enforceable development, halts, massive investment in alignment research before we hit the threshold. But do I think we will? Right now, we're choosing the race over the brake. And that's the choice that ends civilizations.
I love, this idea of like amplifying all these problems that take us 20, 30, 40 years to solve right now and sort of solves them, within like a glorious decade of, ASI revolution. I mean, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, and that kind of bookends our initial question too on what is just intelligence the goal? Well, no. If abundance is the goal, if health is the goal, and making sure everyone's fed and treated equally is the goal, then now we're on to somewhere where there is no breaks to the race or whatever it is, but we can hopefully steer the track ahead of us and point it at certain things rather than just doubling down on intelligence with every new frontier model.
Yeah. Well, it's exciting times. I think that, whether it happens or whether it doesn't, again, this idea that we actually live in a world where ASI could happen, in the next 10 years, 20 years, 5 years, whatever it is. I encourage everyone out there who needs to learn more about ASI and, its potential, wants to learn more about AGI and how close we are to that, to look into this content, ask people about it, talk to people about it. I think it's really important if we're going to get this alignment situation right. These constitutions that we're going to have to write are going to have to happen really quickly, and we're going to have to pull out the best of humanity in order to get these things understood by these larger intelligences if they come. So I think that's a huge challenge that I'm ready for. I want to spend as much time of the next decade working on helping people understand this stuff, and also moving towards like you said, an abundance being the target, not intelligence, just rampant intelligence being our target.
I'm with you, John. And maybe a note to some future civilization that reboots the internet after the Dark Ages. We tried. That's all I want to be able to say.
Amazing.
But we're gonna fix this. We're gonna get there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Amplified Intelligence is produced by Transitional Forums, Thought Cafe, and Future Talk. We really hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Please like and subscribe, share with your friends, and ask any questions you want us to ask Ampy. Put in the comments below, and we will definitely make sure that Ampy hears them. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.